For the weekly meeting of the Mitchell County Board of Supervisors, we have an agenda in front of us. I would like to add item D under items of note, floodplains. Total discussion on that. Might want to also talk a little bit about that under county engineer.
Yeah, and I need to. We'll need to appoint a new person to the Board of Health. Put that on for next week.
Under E, determine the amount of coverage along the whole courthouse.
Okay.
And with that, I'd make a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
I will second that motion.
Been moved and second, further discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. We're to hold a public hearing on the proposed plan specifications and forms of contract for the wastewater treatment facility improvements. At 8:31, I will open the public hearing. Tom, do you want to give a brief overview of?
Yeah, basically the plans and specs cover an upgrade to the Osage municipal wastewater plant to accommodate the Valent bioscience facility. That's in a nutshell. Nobody wants a lecture on it, so that's generally what it covers. It's all associated with the Valent facility.
Okay. Auditor Tesh, have you had any comments, pro or con?
No comment.
Supervisors, have you received any comments, positive or negative, on the proposed?
I've received nothing.
I've received nothing.
I have received nothing. Does the public want to comment one way or the other? Hearing nothing, at 8:32 we will close the public hearing. Item A, resolution approving plans and specifications. We have a resolution in our packet.
I'll make a motion to approve the plans and specifications. I assume he has us that.
You know what? I don't have them with me. That's the one thing I forgot today. Jerry's got a copy, sorry.
I saw them, they're good.
They're good.
I'll bring you guys a set. I forgot all about it.
I read them all, cover to cover.
I know you have.
I'll second that motion.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the resolution and approving plans and specifications for the wastewater treatment facility. Further discussion? Hearing none, Voigtlander.
Aye.
Morrell.
Aye.
Block. Aye. Motion carried. Discussion on the bids.
Okay.
Thank you.
What I have here is a full tabulation of the bids. There were 11 bidders, which is unheard of previously. Okay. The bids were fairly tight. They were, the high guy was 6.7, the low guy was 5.1 for the base project. When we add everything up and we have to do, the bids end up being, the low guy ends up being 15% higher than what our estimate was. You know, and if you think about it, I pay over half of that just in sales tax and go buy some at the store. Unfortunately, in a project of this magnitude, 15% is not $15, it's $700,000, okay? So I sent this information to Kathy and let her know the outcome of the bid so that she can continue to work with however the financial stuff's going on. One of the things that we do, especially when a project doesn't come in as how we thought it would, is we do a little scrutinizing, talk to the contractors, look at the information that was submitted to us. And two things came up on this project. One of them gives me an indication of why the prices are a little bit higher than we thought they would be, and that has to do with the site complexity and the fact that the plant has to continuously operate during this work. So I was talking to contractors, for example, the work they have to do in the existing structure, they have to do off of a boom, instead of getting down in there and working 5 guys at a time, they gotta work 1 guy at a time on a boom, so that complicates that a little bit. On the other side, we looked through the scope of services that all the subcontractors are providing, and we found duplication. So that's gonna end up being a change order to lower the project cost. It's not gonna be $700,000, but it's gonna be $100 and a quarter. I mean, it's a decent change, okay? So we found that, and that'll go down right away, probably next month or so. Once we get all the contracts squared away, we'll come back with that. So that's a good part with that. The bottom line was it was a site complexity that adds to what some of the costs were above and beyond what we thought they were going to be. So overall, I still think the bids were great because we had as many people as we did, and the tightness of the 4 low guys, I mean, they were within like 8% of each other. And that's really good when you get a group of guys like that. You know that's the price you should pay for the project. And nobody was absurdly high. They were all within what I would consider a reasonable range, okay? With that said, the project was bid with the base bid, which is the general work out there. Then there's 2 different alternatives for disinfecting the wastewater. There's alternative A and B. We got the different pricing on them because their material costs were different, but the configuration of the facility was different as well. So we didn't know how it was all going to pan out cost-wise in the end. So we figured, well, we better get prices for both of them. And either one provides a great option. It's just a matter of how the costs are going to pan out. So option A, which is how we thought it would go, would be the lower cost option. It was, so that's what our recommendation would be. And then the last alternative that we had a number for was the new roof for the lab building. That's something that the city had requested. That's something you guys won't be paying for. We asked for the pricing separate, so when the work got done, we knew exactly what the city would be responsible for, okay? So with all that in mind, what our recommendation would be to award the base project to Waukesha for $5,170,000. Option A for UV, which is $299,500. And then the new roof for the lab building at $25,500. And again, the $25,500 is separate just for bookkeeping so that the city can.
So option B is out of the picture?
Yeah, it's just too expensive. And the total awarded cost at that point is $5,495,000. You guys got any questions on what we received, what you see in front of you? Turnout, I expect the same turnout, by the way, on the next project.
What's the difference between A and B?
It's the configuration of the bulbs. This is UV disinfection. And in configuration A, the bulbs are vertically up and down. They take up a shorter building, but they're more expensive, capital-wise. The other ones are horizontal. The building's a lot longer, but the equipment is less expensive up front. So we didn't know exactly how the building would play into how the prices came out, and it ended up being quite a big chunk because of how much bigger the one size building is. So either case, they're both good products. They're both easy to work on. You know, for operator use, they're going to do exactly what they're supposed to do.
Okay. Well, is that your recommendation?
Yeah, my recommendation is the base bid for $5,170,000. UV disinfection option A, $299,500, and the new roof for the existing lab building at $25,500 for a total project cost of $5,495,500, for which the city would be a partner on $25,500 of that.
I'll make that motion.
To award that resolution?
To the Waukesha.
To Waukesha.
Right.
To approve the resolution?
Right.
Item C.
Okay.
No. Oh, yeah, C. No, yeah, excuse me.
I'll second that motion.
Been moved and second, further discussion. Hearing none, Hochlander.
Aye.
Morrell. Watt. Aye. Motion carried. Pay request number 3 for American Structures.
Okay, this pay request gets these guys almost to the end. At the time they sent this pay request in, they were not quite done with one of the structures out there. So with that in mind, this pay request is a progress payment. Current amount requested, once we subtract out the retainage, is $252,523.19. I have no discrepancies with what they requested here.
Yeah, I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Been moved and second for pay request number 3 for American Structures. Further discussion? Hearing none. Morel.
Aye.
Volkman.
Aye.
Walk. Aye. Motion carried. Resolution ordering bids and setting the date for the VBC Industrial Pretreatment Facility, item 4, treatment process.
This will be the last thing you guys have to do. And this is for the actual completion of the plant out at the BBC site. It's probably the biggest chunk of work we have to do out there. The dates that we have in your resolution here are, we'll open up bids on May 30th at 2 o'clock. We'll do it at City Hall again like we did last time. We would have the public hearing and the notice of award on the June 4th Board of Supervisors meeting. I'll provide Lowell with the public notice as I did last time. And that is our schedule. Just a quick footnote to that. I got a meeting with Luke coming up from Valent on Thursday, just to confirm schedules and stuff, but everything we have schedule-wise here is on track with what they got going on with theirs. So this will be the last major push to get everything rolling. Then it's nothing but construction. So, we are seeing the light at the end of the tunnel.
It's amazing how fast that's going up out there.
You know what, it's just amazing how much time has already gone by. I mean, we've been talking about this for actually quite a while now, and it just kills me how fast time goes.
Yeah, so about another year they'll be operational.
Yeah, they actually should be firing up some of their cooling system at the end of the summer. And then by the end of winter, early spring, they'll be running these small little batches instead of real big ones, just to kind of get the process done. By the end of summer next year, they'll be going full bore. So,
Good.
it's cool.
Make a motion to approve that resolution, ordering the bids and setting the date for the BBC Industrial Pretreatment Facility number 4.
And I will second that motion.
It's been moved and second. Further discussion? Hearing none. Volkman.
Aye.
Morel.
Aye.
Walk. Aye. Motion carried.
Okay, we'll get contracts rolling. I'll be here in 2 weeks to have you guys sign the contracts for Waukesha, and then we're under construction. All right, we'll keep you up to speed. See you guys.
Thank you.
Take care. Yep, see ya.
Item 3, County Attorney General discussion. Morning, Mr. Watt.
How are you?
Good.
Just some this bill did get cleared, correct? Because that's the one on the property that we sold.
Oh. Not yet.
Okay, but it's going to.
Yep.
Okay. So that's the one we sold to Tim Schultz. And the one that we're buying from Senansker County Economic Development, I haven't gotten the stuff yet from Johns. It's been recorded, and until we get that, we're not gonna close, and we have to get their final payment, so. The burden is on them. That 911, or not 911, the snow emergency, I emailed that out. Anybody have any questions or concerns or about that? I was gonna wait till you guys had a chance to look at it before I emailed it to Carl again.
I didn't have
I
any.
looked all the way, as much as I could.
I'll email it to Carl, and if he says it looks okay, we'll get it set for hearing then sometime. Hopefully we don't need it anymore in a few months.
Yeah.
See, you had a little setback in the...
Oh, I fully anticipated that's what was gonna happen. It would've been nice to have been able to introduce some of those things, but it's not, certainly not fatal to the case. We planned all along that was what was gonna happen. We planned on trying the case without that, but the law is what the law is.
That's what they say.
dump trucks, or you wanna wait till Rich gets here?
No, you can,
Talk about it now.
yeah.
Do you guys understand what the big issue is?
Not totally, but.
Yes
Okay.
and no.
Okay.
It's just that they have more axles and
This is the way their trucks are set up now. All right? It's 35 feet from that axle to that axle. If you go on the one for primary highways, they can be 80,000 pounds. If you go on the one for non-primary highways, they have nothing for 7 axles until you get to 41 feet. So what it amounts to is if they pull up one of the axles, then they have 6 axles on the road, then they're 35 feet, they can be 72,000 pounds. Which makes no sense that by pulling up an axle, they can haul more weight.
Yeah.
I mean, that makes no sense whatsoever. And the problem is, like a lot of other things, the law hasn't caught up with the technology.
there you go.
And that's simply what it is. I don't think the Board of Supervisors can do a resolution that says, you know, you can take, put all your axles down, be 35 feet long, and haul 80,000 pounds. That'd be kind of like the supervisor saying, well, we think the roads are safe to drive it at 60 miles an hour, so we'll do a resolution raising the speed limits in Mitchell County to 60 miles an hour. That doesn't stop the DOT or the Sheriff's Department or the Highway Patrol from writing a ticket. So,
They've got trucks in that configuration,
who's that?
if I remember it.
Yeah. Both Falks do, and Mayors have one very similar to this. They also make them with the 34 foot. And the old DOT officer that worked in the area was of the opinion that if they had all the axles on the ground and they were 35 feet long, that they could weigh 80,000 pounds. The new DOT officers started writing tickets if they were over, I think, 72, right, with all the axles on the ground. Rich and I and Aaron spent an hour and a half again last week pulling our hair out. Finally, we just said, enough's enough, you know, because you'll drive yourself crazy if you're trying to figure it out, because it never will make sense. Basically, the conclusion we came up to is we weren't going to prosecute any tickets for 35 feet with 7 axles, 80,000 pounds. So if the DOT, it's the same as we're not going to prosecute any speeding tickets for 56 miles an hour. You know, maybe it's technically against the law. Well, we know 56 is against the law. I still don't know if having 35 feet with 7 axles and 80,000 pounds is against the law or not. Do you?
One can assume the way the truck manual is that it is, but there's no number there, so.
And like my theory always is, everything is lawful until you show me a law that says it isn't. You know, I certainly know what the intent of this is, because you can't say, oh, if you're 4 feet long and have 7 axles, you can, you know, go down the road. That's impossible. And I think that's probably what they thought when they were doing these. But on the other hand, they do a chart for the primary highways, and they chart those 7 axles. On the secondary highways, they don't chart them.
These tables are old.
I mean, at least they should be charted. If they say, okay, you can only weigh 72,000 pounds, put it on there. But they don't have any number on there.
But the DOT is not concerned with the secondary road system, they're only concerned with the primary road set. section, right?
No, they write them on our blacktops. They write overweight tickets.
Well, then they should be concerned with our, they should have a sheet like that for us.
They do.
They do, they have a table for
They do.
second.
It should be updated just like theirs.
Yeah, it needs to be updated.
Well, these are their
They're,
sheets.
those were established at the same time. The primary highway system has higher weight restrictions, I believe, because their bridges are evaluated for those type of loads. There are too many axle configurations anymore to even keep up with what's legal and what's not legal. They have to, the state has to change something in order to make it easier for people to, for us to even understand how to write the oversized, overweight permits. There's too many axle configurations anymore to even try to keep up. And when we were pulling our hair out, and I don't have much left now, the problem is they're allowed in the primary system. How do you get there? It does them no good to be allowed in the primary system if you can't get there. So.
So the answer is we're right back to where we started. Aaron has talked to the DOT officer, and he's basically told them that we're not going to prosecute those tickets. Now that doesn't stop the DOT from going in on their own and doing it. But we're not going to prosecute it, because we don't think it's against the law. But it may be.
Well, that's all now you can argue it, I suppose. Get that before a judge. What would he say?
I don't know. We don't know. Because I can argue it straight face both ways.
There's divisible and indivisible loads. You know, a milk truck can be overweight, but they get a special permit. They've got a perishable item. You can't go and pick somebody's half of their bulk tank up at the farm and then leave because you're overweight. So they allow that, and they allow that on the secondary system. So there are too many. In my opinion, there's too many. He can do it, but he can't do it.
Well,
it's not easy to.
Don't they allow semis in the fall? 100,000?
90.
90?
10,000 over.
10,000? Okay.
No, normally 10%.
This is a percentage?
10%.
Make it 88. So,
About that, you grab those
You still
tickets.
can't drive over a posted bridge, no matter how heavy you are.
Right.
So, but we don't. You know, our bridges in the county are only evaluated for the standard axle configurations.
which don't exist
Well,
anymore.
the only thing is, this thing again, when you mention speed limits and that, I mean, basically the state sets all the speed limits and says, I mean, tells us what we can and can't do. When they left that blank, and I realize you and I have a disagreement on that, but when they have that blank, why can't we do, and they have not put a restriction in the law that's, have they, that says that we are not allowed? I mean, if,
Well, you can never do home rule what interferes with the state's scheme plan.
right, but I mean, if the
Yeah.
state has that as part of their primary system, and they have not denied us that right,
Can we adopt the state's primary plan for the county and exclude all bridges?
I don't think so. In my opinion,
Well, they
no.
didn't, we could, couldn't we?
If you want, if you direct me to do it, I'll draw the resolution doing
Nah,
that.
I don't know how big a problem is this?
Well, what happens if it turns out that they really should have only been 72,000 pounds, there's an accident, they bring in an expert that says, you know, if that truck would have weighed 72,000 pounds, it could have stopped in time, but since it weighed 80,000 and the county did a resolution authorizing it, we're gonna sue the county too, because they're just as much to blame as the person driving the truck. That's
what's the chances of that happening?
Well,
I mean-
I always say as an attorney, if it's possible to happen, I have to assume it will happen.
Yeah, I understand.
I'm at least advising you guys. If you
I
guys,
understand.
if you guys being fully informed, make the decision to do that,
But doing this, there's other considerations to take into effect.
there's civil liability to take
Yeah.
into effect.
I guess if we're not prosecuting, I don't see a problem.
Like I
Get the
said,
shortest distance to the primary highway system and go.
now that's not to say if all of a sudden somebody gets pulled over, you know, and they're rude and swear at the cop or the DOT officer, that we might say, okay, we're gonna prosecute you, and you're, you know, at 76, and then we'll find out if it's against the law or not. But the general rule is the same, you know, I prosecuted 58 once. You know, only because the guy swore at the officer, and said the officer was just gonna give him a warning ticket, and after about the fourth time he got swore at, he gave him a ticket.
Well, he's asking for
So-
attention.
Now, generally, we won't prosecute at 58, and I doubt if you stop too many people at 58.
Better things to do.
But
For the camera. Not giving all my secrets up.
legally, it's against the law.
I kept you off the camera for that.
55 or 56 or 100, it's still against the law.
That's right.
The only difference is the amount of the fine.
But isn't there something in the law that the public will determine the normal and safe speed? I mean, you can't have some people driving 60 and some people driving 35.
Safe and sane.
Safe and sane or whatever. I've been on the interstate, you're better off going 73, 4. Normally nobody passes you, and you don't have to pass anybody else, except the lone one guy that wants to do 65. But I've also had officers go around me, you know, no lights on or nothing, but they were in a hurry to go someplace, and one time I passed the highway patrolman going home. I mean, and he didn't say anything. I mean, I was probably going a few miles an hour over the speed limit. But, you know, I mean, I guess my feeling is if you aren't making a scene, you're not causing problems, you're not being dangerous, you're, you know, what's the difference if everybody drives 60? Most people drive 60 on the secondary road systems. I have not seen anybody that, I try to drive 55 once in a while, and you've always got a line piled up behind you, you know? And so you're better off driving that 59, 60.
Well, which do you want to talk,
Yeah.
common sense?
Well, that's what I'm saying.
That's where I was having trouble in his office. I was trying to make the law make sense, and he told me you're never gonna figure it out. And I can't.
If you're talking common sense, it makes no sense to make them pull up an axle
Absolutely not.
and
Leave it
be
down.
legal, but if they put it down and haul the same amount of weight, they may be breaking the law.
They can run 72,000 pounds with all 7 axles down. That's not the issue.
No, I don't think they can. Don't they have to pull one
Well,
up?
there's nothing in the table that says you can run
Yeah.
7 axles at 72,000 pounds. You're correct.
Right.
So they can pull 1 axle up and be legal if they have their strong arm down. If they bring the strong arm up and put the other axle down, they can haul less. It's all about weight distribution in that area. And
So they could have the weight more uniformly distributed and be violating the law, but if they concentrate the weight more by pulling up an axle, then they're not violating.
I don't know that they've ever been pulled over with their strong arm down and been 72,000 pounds to see what the DOT officer would say. Because he'd have to go to his table and say, well, I don't know. There's nothing there. Can you run? I mean, one could make the assumption that it wouldn't be a problem because you're lighter than a 6.
Well, then on the other hand, maybe we ought to follow the law in the legislative forums in Statesville on Saturday for one.
Well, you know, and that's one thing we've talked about too, is the trucking industry has to, and I know they're working on it too at the State House, they need to push this issue too, if they want something changed. I'm not saying all of our roads can handle those types of loads either.
And so it's all for 8,000 more pounds.
Or, you know, there's economies in there, you know, if you get 8,000 pounds per load, that's, you know, after 3 loads, that's 1 round with a truck. I mean,
Where are they hauling mostly with that capacity? Are they just-
well, they wouldn't mind hauling everywhere with it, because
Is
if
that
you've got a resident out in the rural area that wants 25 ton of rock, you either take 2 truckloads or you can take 1. Now, I'm not saying that 80,000 pounds is gonna not tear up a gravel road getting there, but there's a lot of places that you gotta cross a bridge to get there. how efficient is it if you've gotta snake your way around to get there with that load versus just taking 2 legal sized loads?
Yeah, I didn't know if they were just going for a certain
Well-
project, or if they were.
Well,
A lot of times-
basically though, isn't that what they're really doing in this case? I mean, they specified a certain,
They've got projects coming up that they would like to haul, you know.
and they've looked over the route, there are no bridges and that, and I mean, that's what they're really asking is,
So how many loads they talking?
pardon?
How many loads are they talking?
Well, we're talking doing that whole, they apparently got the contract for 218, and so they wanna haul that out of the Dino quarry.
You know, it might even go beyond that, if you've got out-of-state trucks coming in to the state to pick, you know, Minnesota comes on, and I don't know what Minnesota's legal loads are, but I mean, if you've got trucks coming from down there, they still need to get to the state highway system, and in theory, they could be allowed that same weight restriction to get to the state road and out, but
No, but we got one specific instance that they've asked about, is really what it boils down to.
Then between the hours of 8 and 4.
I don't know.
I guess we're not prosecuting, I guess I don't see the big problem,
No.
unless, like you said, somebody's asking for attention. They just gonna have to run the risk of, yeah, they may get a ticket, but,
And the ticket probably gets thrown out.
and they can probably hang it on their wall or something.
But we can't tell the DOT what to do.
Right.
We can't tell the highway patrol what to do. I can't tell the sheriff's department what to do. I'm just saying, we're not gonna prosecute these county attorneys.
Well, guy once told me, let your conscience be your guide, so.
Well, in this situation, I think it's let common sense be your guide.
And common sense would be the biggest thing.
Because the common sense does less damage to the road than what the law may or may not allow.
Anything else?
I have nothing else.
Have nothing, we have nothing.
Okay?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mark.
Sheriff Beaver, says you have a report.
I don't have much, but I do have a check for it.
Well, that's what
Might
we'd
see it
like.
now.
Yeah.
It's a little bigger than sometimes, isn't it?
Yeah, I didn't get a copy of it this time. Some reason. It's in here somewhere that I don't see it.
There's our columns. Problem on the state cloud.
No, I usually have one on the cover here, and I didn't see it.
So we averaged.
I think so. You don't see one more.
Yeah,
We were up a little bit in March with our daily count. Hopefully things settle back out.
Well, if you wouldn't pick on these people trying to steal our cans, like.
Take all kinds.
Did you catch somebody?
We did, yeah, we did, so it worked out pretty well.
Good.
Pretty good investment, a little bit we had invested, worked out, so.
Well, maybe the word will spread, and they'll,
I think it probably will and already has.
good.
Yeah.
see in the paper, the sheriff, and the law enforcement in Iowa wanna start using drones.
Yeah, well, I don't know about that.
But that's what you used on this other thing.
It's a little bit ridiculous, there goes our common sense. So,
Fly one into somebody's living room window, and
yeah.
They say they make them the size of mosquitoes now with cameras.
It was on
Yeah.
TV one time, and they can be, they even look like birds,
Yeah.
you know.
I'm sure there'll be a test case, some big city or county will use it for something and it'll go to the Supreme Court. So,
Do we have a motion to
I'll make
approve?
that motion.
That's all we need.
to accept the sheriff's report for month of March.
And I'll second.
Been moved and second, further discussion. Hearing none, we're out.
Aye.
Oakland, motion carried. Anything else? right off that?
No, I guess I don't have anything else. I contacted the gentleman that's gonna install the server that we talked about last week. And he hasn't been over yet, but I expected maybe even this week. He thought last week Friday he'd get there and he didn't, so he may show up this week. Other than that, I don't have anything.
Going good.
I think
Okay.
so.
Really quiet.
Yeah.
Good.
Thank you.
Engineer Brown, would you like to take the hot seat?
I suppose.
It's just warmed up is all, I mean,
I
that's.
don't want to make it any warmer. I'm gonna give you,
If you'd actually take some safflower oil every day, tablespoon, you'll start growing more hair.
I just keep pulling it out every day anyway, so it won't matter. I'm gonna have, these are the official documents that I didn't have last week for the budget program. All you need to do is sign where the, let's see what that might be, that's just a draft. So if you wanna do that one, then the auditor can sign that one on both of those copies. It's just, I don't think Jim ever did it, but that way you guys know what's there.
Oh, but I only have one copy.
This, you know, the construction and
I'm
the
sorry.
secondary road budget. I had to make a couple different changes in local dollars versus farm and market for some of our federal stuff. It just changed, it shuffled some money around is all it did. We got, all of our salt delivered from last year's order, so we're about half full. Then they wanted by last Friday, they wanted our commitment. I'll get the dates. Okay. They were due, everything was due yesterday, but everything was approved last week, so. I pre-ordered 1,500 ton of salt. Now the DOT will take those numbers and bid it with all the other counties and state sheds, so we'll know what our dollar amount is then. But we're looking about getting last year's order put in a shed. We're about where we would be on a normal season anyway, so we didn't lose any storage, or we didn't, you know. So we're about where we should be on 1,500 ton, and that's typically what we order anyway. So we'll be getting that. I don't know when they'll bid that. If they'll bid that in May, and then we'll know probably by June what the prices are, and then we'll have to accept them, which usually isn't a problem. It is what it is. So we're getting the final plans done in Hickory. Like I said last week, the DOT changed a bunch of stuff, so we're scrambling trying to change things so we can make it work for us. So I got to make some phone calls today to DOT. That will, we may try to bring the title sheet in for you guys next week to sign. I'll have somebody do it. I'll be at Nace in Des Moines next week, so I won't be here. So if we need to, we get it pushed through. The DOT doesn't need signed title sheets when they go out to bid, but we should have something on file that shows that it's approved. So, like I said, I'll be out next week at Nace. And then right now, we are focusing on the gravel roads. They are junk. Some of them are, some of them aren't. There's a few bad ones out there that all this rain, I mean, it pounded, some of this rain pounded them hard, and that's great, but some of them were the potholes where it just made them worse, so.
4 inches in our gauge.
Did you?
Total.
I had an inch between Saturday and Sunday. So.
You had some hard water up there.
Oh yeah, that, county car looks a little funny right now, so. I need to get a couple lessons.
Your dimples in it?
Looks like a golf course, like I was at a golf course, but I couldn't do anything. I mean, it took my siding, I think it damaged the roof in the house. Nobody's gonna look at that yet, but it might have totaled my camper. Should have waited another week to pull it out of storage. It's teased by the nice weather.
Yeah.
But we'll see what happens. I haven't gotten the estimates back from anybody yet. One body shop wanted to reskin the top, and I'm not top off the car, but nobody looks at it.
Yeah.
Anyway, we get done with these Hickory plans, we get everything final with the DOT, we're going to focus again on that Primrose Bridge north of Statesville and get that shed moving again. We're pretty close.
Did you have a conversation with Mrs. Small?
No, I didn't, but I went down there today again, that way there was water down
Oh,
there.
yeah, there was a lot of
and
water.
there
I was
is
gonna say.
nothing. I didn't talk to her, I'm going to call her today. But putting a pipe in there ain't gonna make a difference. There's water sitting on the other side of the road. There's no reason to put a pipe in the road. It's not gonna go anywhere.
Just go back and forth.
Yeah,
Inside the
they're
road
both
to
the
the
same
other.
elevation, and what happened is there's, you know, a bank on the stream or the river,
Mhm.
and then it gets to be a low point in there, and I don't know if it floods upstream and it pushes down into that low point and just has to sit there to get away. Unless they wanna dig their own trench to the river, I'm not gonna be putting a pipe, there's nothing that we're gonna do that's gonna make it any better.
Yeah.
So, I'll call her
Just
later.
give her a call.
I wanted to kinda wait and see if we had some rain to find out, cause
Yeah.
last time I was down there was very little water, I'm like, this can't be an issue, and I see there's more water, but both sides have water. You're not gonna get to flow anywhere, cause theirs isn't flowing either.
What they need is, like you said, I think what they need is a trench.
Or, you know, it's a floodplain area, there.
East
That's
and
what's
west.
gonna happen. if the
Well,
water
yeah, it
gets
is
that.
definite floodplain, but I mean, it's kind of a low area back
Mhm.
toward the north-south road.
That's something nature
If
did.
they want that to come out of there, they'll have to dig a trench back to the river,
You know, and I think it's just so flat in there, they'd have to dig several of them to get it to drain.
probably, probably. Anyway, appreciate if you give it a call.
We've got lots of, it's nice to look this time of year, you can see where all the ditch drains need to be, but like I said, we're focusing on gravel for the time. And we're gonna do, I think we'll do our own rock on this year, again, it seems to work out pretty well. Let's see if vacations and stuff get in the way, with guys being gone, we may have the option, I think I may put in the option, we'll bid the quarries for tonnage, and then, if we need to, I know some of the quarries don't like it, if we've only got 2 trucks running, they don't wanna keep a guy there loading, so maybe there's a possibility we can throw some of the hired trucks in between to keep the cycle going.
Have you ever given any thought to using harder rock on these roads?
Well, that's a great theory, but we're gonna spend a lot more money trucking it, and it's gonna cost more. I mean, the rockets,
Would it last longer?
I'm not sure.
Is this good for?
Define last longer, I mean, we did try some different rock last year that had less fines in it, and that stuff seems to be doing well, but, you know, it's gonna be hard to justify hauling it that much further. I mean, if you guys want me to, I can, I just don't know whether.
Well, I just hear about it every once in a while.
Well, I know I hear about it too, that
You know,
this rock's soft, this rock's hard, but you bid the price accordingly too. There's always a reduction in cost due to the hardness of the rock too, so.
Yeah, I think too, you need a certain amount of clay in there so it doesn't start rolling, I mean.
Well, and that's the problem, sometimes you get that clay in there and it gets slimy, so what we tried last year was we found that they had a rock there that had not clay fines, but actually limestone fines, so it was a little less slimy when it got wet, and then it's not, it helps lock in a little bit, but, and then there again, it costs a little bit more too. You know, it's kind of where people live too, I mean, it's,
call the engineers on this,
you
so.
know, do it.
Well, and, you know, and it's the equipment they're running today too, you know, it's,
Well, yeah, that's
a lot of the Model A and B John Deeres are history, you know. They're running 80,000 pound equipment out there now.
And we'll, you know, we go out and there's places that need better cross slope on the roads, and we'll try to build the crown back up. That'll help get the water off the road and maybe help with the sliminess where people are driving.
You knock them edges off so the water can get off into the ditch too,
Well,
or what?
that's what, when we blade, that's what we try to cut that sod so it gets rid of that secondary ditch so the water does get away. Anything from me?
That's all I had.
Well, got some, you know, floodplain issues, obviously. Well, our lot up at St. Ansgar's shows now that we're even part of that floodplain. South of St. Ansgar there at Cedar Village and that, they really feel that FEMA has come up with the wrong height or whatever. Roger Mayer's willing to try to do some chutes of heights and so on, but he's not a certified engineer, and he was wondering if we knew of a certified engineer that could at least
It's not certified engineer, it's certified land surveyor that you need to verify elevations when it comes to that kind of stuff.
Okay.
It's not engineer, it's surveyor.
Oh, so
Licensed.
you're not.
I'm not a licensed surveyor, I mean, I know how to do it, but I don't have a stamp to say this is good.
Jim?
There's
Well, then,
very few of them that are county engineers and land surveyors.
okay.
And I know they've been in contact. I thought they were in contact with one already, but of course, nobody wants to pay those fees. And on the flip side of that, had I been a licensed surveyor, then I'm still a public official, not private, but anyway, I'm not licensed.
Well,
as
but
a
if he
surveyor.
needs a little help and you
We
could
can
help,
figure out,
would
we
you
can
be willing?
we can figure out elevations, that's not the
Yeah.
issue, it's.
Well, that's
certifying.
what, I mean, this doesn't, I don't think need. to
I
be
know,
that
this is
official.
and I understand their situation, because I sat at that meeting, and it doesn't make sense where they've got these elevations, I mean.
Well, and I want to go through it a lot more detail here at the end when we get to items of note, but I mean,
How long
if
is
he
that gonna
does.
be? I'll stick
Pardon?
around. How long are you gonna be with till you get to the, I'll stick
Well,
around.
no, I mean, if you want, we can go through it now then.
That's fine with me.
Yeah, we can go through it now.
As long as Rich is here.
Well, part of the problem that we have is that, and it makes no sense at all, like you say, that they increased the height of the 100-year flood north of the dam at Mitchell, and yet again south of the dam at Mitchell, they actually either kept the same or lowered it. Well, I mean, how do you lower the flood south of the dam and
Water's
raise it?
going down the same river.
Yeah, going down the same river. Well, then you even have a stupider problem. When you look at the floodplain maps and you go to St. Ansgar, you know, you're coming in on T26 from the south. You turn on 8th Street there and you go about a block. There's a little ravine, I suppose, for lack of a better word. That whole area is part of the Cedar River floodplain. That's 30 feet higher than the river. So you got houses right there that are showing up. That's absolutely ridiculous. There's no, I mean, it's.
Did they define that area as if the river backed up, this is where the flood is? Because that river is never gonna.
No, it never.
Never say never unless we're building arcs, but if that water backs up that high, we're in big trouble.
Other people have bigger problems than most people.
And so, I mean, we basically have some of the same issues there in the northeast corner of where the industrial park is and that, again.
Are they classifying that, because
So
I know that area gets wet, that in town, because it's trying to drain the flat part of the city, and that could fill. I mean, I know they had that big drainage project that they did to try to get that water out of town so it wasn't setting. But
So what is gonna happen, I mean, so we had our association meeting Sunday night, Cedar Village. I always call it Fat Cat City -1. And so those people that live right on the river, all of a sudden, I mean, again, they are affected. Well, you also got to the south, you got Gobbleroods and the fellow that. Yeah, and then on the north, you got, you know, some of those people. The other side of the river, you got those people. And so the talk was, is this elevation really correct? And so I got a hold of the DNR guy yesterday, and we went around and around for, I mean, nice conversation and that, but he kept on explaining, the only thing you can really do is, we know where the 100-year flood mark supposedly is from FEMA now. They changed it. And so you can have it surveyed, and if you're above that 100-year flood mark, then we'll take it out of there. So, and I kept explaining to him, I said, well, there has to be something what if this 100-year flood mark is wrong? I mean, there has to be a way to change that. And like I say, we kept kind of going back and forth. And finally he did explain, well, yes, if you have a certified engineer that actually studies the river and so on and so forth and determines that FEMA made an error that can be changed. Well, so then I said, well, who do you consider like a certified engineer? Would Larry Weber, that has his doctorate, that's in engineering from the U of I, is he, well, we can't recommend any. I said, I'm not asking you to recommend somebody. I'm asking, does he qualify for your program and that? Well, then we kind of went around. Finally, he said, yes, he would qualify. Well, they don't want to, they don't want to work with you on any of this. So I called Larry Weber up yesterday, and Larry said, well, how did they determine this height anyway? And I said, I have no idea. I didn't see where, because he said if they're just guesstimate and so on and so forth, he says, and Larry was going to look into it, get back to me later this week. And so in any event, it may cost a little money, it may cost a lot of money, I don't know. Larry's going to, but as many people as are affected, it sounds like even Larry thought, I mean, how ridiculous at St. Ansgar that on 7th Street, that's part of being in the floodplain. So, in any event,
Okay,
it's going to affect if the properties are in the floodplain and that, then maybe their whole valuation gets lowered. We lose the property tax, like you mentioned a few weeks ago. It can have a devastating effect, and maybe we should be looking more at. And Larry should be able to give us an idea of do we have a basis to go on, do we not have a basis to, but if there's a basis to go on, it might be for our advantage to pursue this, and I wouldn't pursue it on our own, I'd pursue it with all of the homeowners, they'd have to be part of it and so on, but I think it might be worth our time to at least take a look at it. Supervisor Oakland, you were going to say something.
well, I was just trying to figure out how they figured out where the floodplains are. It wouldn't have anything to do with those little water height things they have on the bridges?
No, those are just sensors to determine the height. They aren't determining it. I don't think they've had anything long enough to know whether the 100-year flood, we had all that rain. Did we have the 100-year flood? They don't know. When I went to that meeting that night, they said they had.
Know how high it was.
What's that?
They'll know how high the water was.
Right.
At such and such a date, and so then you can take the topography of the land behind that, and you'll know how far.
Right, and that's what they did. What they had was when I went to that meeting that night, they had, how did you guys come up with this? Well, we've got better data now than they did back when they first came up with their flood maps. Whatever their better data is, and then they ran better calculations, they were able to determine what the 100-year flood elevations are, and then they back it out of, they've got more accurate aerial photography with elevations on it that they backed it out and did it that way. Now, what I took out of that meeting was, if you're a landowner and you don't believe you're in the floodplain, then it's the landowner's responsibility to get a survey done and prove that you're not there, and then they will take you out. And with an association like the Cedar Village down there, that association was talking about getting together and having a complete survey done at Cedar Village, and then they could get themselves out. But
well, that's only one of 3 options. I mean, that was the first option again, like
I haven't been to another meeting since that first one.
But the second option was, did they actually calculate the
floodplain
level right? I mean, the first option was just what you were saying is, here's the 100-year flood, if you're above it, you're out. I mean, just get a, but how does that come up 10 feet above the dam at Mitchell, and yet below the dam at Mitchell, it didn't raise at all because you have the same water plus.
Yeah, it's the same river, it's the same water.
Unless it's the flood control where you can open gates and get the water out. I don't know.
I mean,
how
it's
they determine
something's not jiving though. I mean,
I agree with you.
that was the biggest question they had that night is, how did they come up with it and how do they know they're right?
well,
And that was the thing. Well, maybe it's not right, but prove to me it's not.
but I mean, the
You're
DNR.
guilty until you've proven innocence. I mean, that's the way they're operating. I mean,
to me, it sounded like the DNR really didn't want anything changed because I say he was hesitant to give me, and I kept on asking the same
It's a
question.
lot of work for them to change something once they've got it established, and it's not just a quick deal, you turn it in and it's done. They've gotta reevaluate it, and then with the map, they gotta, you know, it's almost like they gotta have a certificate stating that this property's not in there.
But that whole St. Ansgar area up there's something wrong somewhere. I mean,
I don't know, I sat at the meeting, and I didn't know what the elevations were, I still don't know what the actual flood elevation is there, but one rumor was, hell, it could wash our Culberson Bridge out if it floods. Well, I don't see that. Never say never, but it's not happened yet. We've had some pretty good floods. So I don't know how they came up with their number. They're the hydraulic engineers. I'm not. But however they came up with it, I'm not sure.
but by next Tuesday, I should have more information from Larry Weber, what he thinks, and I mean, they have been taking a look at this and so forth, and he will have some ideas on whether or not,
Oh, did they flood the last time?
no.
They've never. I
Never
don't think
flooded.
anybody's been flooded down there. And
I mean, that's the whole
argument.
joke of it. I mean,
And I know that the comment made was, well, maybe that was an 86-year flood, not a 100-year flood. Well, how do you know?
might have been a 500-year flood instead of a 100-year
Well,
flood.
you don't know. I don't know how you determine.
Oh, there's a
Take
lot
the
of,
mark,
a
take the
100-year
level, then
flood,
you go
there's
back
always a
100
chance.
years.
It's
Well,
1 in 100.
Right.
It's not, you count 99 years and then you're gonna have a 100-year flood.
Right, exactly, but
Every year you have 1 in 100 chance.
but nobody tells you what that volume of water is to determine whether you're that, because there's a mark. What is the 100-year flood? It's an elevation. Well, nobody's really measured it to know what the elevation is, so
The
did we
highest
have it?
water in the last 100 years.
Well, did they have it? Nobody can tell us. Nobody's
How can they
going,
determine the 500?
I,
You know, there were no records here, you know.
it's hydraulic engineering. It's not a perfect science.
Well, that's the whole thing. I mean, if they've made a mistake in this,
But it's, you know, you're guilty until you have to
Yeah,
prove yourself
yeah,
innocent.
that's what they told them. Is
That's what's
if you don't
not
prove you're
right.
in it, then
I think the whole thing is
That's the
they're
part that's
dancing
not right.
around the problem that they created through agriculture and tile and the whole works. They're trying to,
Isn't that tied in with the watershed and stuff now?
just drive around out in the country, you can see how all our ditches are now major waterways. I mean, you can see erosion in our ditches. You can see the field,
well, I can see,
Dirt.
you can
and it's,
look at it.
and it's cutting back into
You
the
can
fields.
drive it. You can drive a lot of roads and see where the field's washing into the ditch just by the way that over time,
Right.
you can see where the waterway comes out of that field into the ditch, and then we got to go out and
You probably have
spend
a
our money
guy,
to fill it or open it back up.
you could have a guy on that excavator all summer long just cleaning ditches.
We could.
And you'd never keep up with it.
You're right.
They created it.
Well,
You used to have fence rows, you had stuff there, now they wanna farm all the way to the ditch.
100 years ago, you had, wasn't all row crop, you know.
We had half our farm seeded down all the time.
You had hay, you had pastures,
and
you had oats.
And so you didn't see that water go, you know. That's what's happening now. It's just like every time you get a big 4-inch rain or 5-inch rain, it's like everybody flushed the toilet.
the problems go beyond, farming's changed a lot since then too, and there's reasons behind that.
One word, greed.
You know, yeah, you got it. Well, maybe you shouldn't be farming up to the riverbank. Maybe you should be back 200 feet from any waterway.
but keeping all of that in mind, and that answers a lot of your question. When did we have the last, or the 100-year flood? Well, it wasn't 80 years ago because you had the meandering streams, all of the pastures and so on and so forth. It's just really recently, these are really your
2008,
benchmarks.
you probably had it.
Pardon?
In 2008, we probably had it
Yeah,
right
but I
here.
mean, these are really your benchmarks. It wasn't in 1865 when you didn't have the ditches, you didn't have this, that, and the other thing. So I mean, I think we've answered that question.
How many sloughs did we
Yeah.
have? You know?
Right.
I mean, good lord.
You guys are talking beyond. my
Yeah,
age, so-
we're just
Yeah.
meandering here. We move on.
But put it down for next week anyway, floodplain, so that we have possible action. Not that, at least then we can discuss it and,
That's fine with me.
so.
All right.
Have a good week. Thanks, Rich.
You got, minutes.
Looking over, I'll make a motion to approve.
Been moved in second for the discussion.
Am I in the picture here?
All those in favor, or, no, excuse me, Hoaglander.
Aye.
Morale.
Aye.
Watt, aye, motion carried. Letter from Soil and Water regarding taxation for maintaining conservation water structures.
I got half a motion to rescind my motion to join that watershed. They sat there and told me that day that, no, it would never happen. No way could we assess people and property. And then a week later, here comes this letter.
Is it, in a nutshell, what's it say, Joel? That they want to tax city
Section-
and ag too?
Well,
That only allows taxation assessed value on agricultural land. Now they want to change it to where it's all real property. That's, everybody is gonna get assessed for somebody else's mistakes.
See, a lot of towns have a storm sewer tax. Garner, Ritz, we've never done it. You know, it's a penny or two a month. That's how you get your storm sewers put in. But we've been advised to do it, and we haven't. But if they put a tax on, then all of a sudden we're probably out of it, you know, because it's water. I don't know, I'm just throwing this out there.
well, but this isn't the Upper Cedar watershed, this is a statewide thing.
Oh,
This is a statewide movement,
oh, okay.
and I can appreciate where you're coming from, but I mean, it really is altogether different than.
She was here, right? I don't know. That was Rose McCarthy, chair,
She signed it.
Mitchell County Soil and Water Conservation
So there's
District.
support
And
of
they all sat there and that day and they didn't know anything about it. Never heard of that. Now it's
But I can,
She signed it.
all real
Rose was here.
property currently subject to property taxation.
Was McCarthy was here that day.
Agricultural land to be all real property.
Well, I see they want to change the Iowa code.
Yeah.
That might be tough to do.
I'm not denying that there's a problem out there. Our water runs away too quickly. But I think you need to address that in conservation practices and not,
Let's deal with the cause and not the symptoms.
right. And that shouldn't be the people in Cedar Village's problem.
What they're basically saying is that water comes off of everybody's property, so they wanna tax everybody.
But I can just
But
go,
they're the ones creating the problem.
you can look around the city here. You can look
Storm
out,
sewer.
go right out north here. There's a big retention pond out there. You know, the city here's been,
They have it.
proactive, yeah. And then you can go over by where the bowling alley is, and that old trestle is still left in there, so that slows the water down. And, yeah, it drains the whole city. I mean, there's,
And we got south, west too. out
Right.
there. It's all retention, detention. Yeah.
but then,
There's a lot of water there.
but then again, you go to St. Ansgar and Stacyville and Riceville, they have none of that.
Right.
And so, you keep on putting more blacktop down, more cement down, and it doesn't, your water doesn't
Right.
soak in, it has to drain away, and so to some extent, then, yeah, a city like Osage is doing what needs to be done with your retention pond. St. Ansgar's adding to the problem just like, because you no longer have all of the area to absorb. So, I mean, I can see part of their reasoning too.
I go back to farming practices also too. Today,
Yeah.
do you ever see anybody cultivate corn in the summer?
Pretty rare.
Pretty rare.
Right.
Now, that land out there is no-till, so when that hard rain's coming, Rich just said it, it packs that.
Right.
And so when that gets packed, that's just like a paved parking lot. That water runs off just about as fast as it does on a concrete surface.
mean, I guess we can point fingers all day at this one, that one, and the other one, and I'm not saying, but I think we're all part of the problem. I mean,
All right, and it all has to. I could growl on this all day, Stan.
yeah, I know it.
Um,
And I'm not necessarily supporting this neither, but
And then when
I'm,
it comes to that all real property, then how are we going to evaluate the assessed value of all this real property? By its market value? I think that would be a way to do it. I mean, because then, now we've got $10,000 an acre land out there that's gonna get assessed on its $10,000, not a.
truthfully, do you think this is gonna pass the
I
Iowa
hope to God it
legislature?
doesn't.
No,
Anybody
but,
any fool that passed that.
no, I'm just saying, do you really think it's even gonna pass the Iowa
Depends on how
legislature?
many lobbyists they got down there pushing for it.
Yeah,
There's a lot of conservation practices that could be put in place long before that law would ever have to be changed in my book, but I'm just a lowly county supervisor.
They don't ask us little people, do they?
But you carry a lot of weight, you know. Right.
I'm trying to get rid of some of that.
No, I didn't mean that.
Yeah, I know. But, you know, I mean, things like this.
Edit that out.
The biggest problem was I had Stan, they all sat there and they all acted like they never heard of that.
And their names are-
But our own soil and water conservation chairperson signed it. And it came a
well,
week
the only
later.
thing, well, yeah, I mean, my only question is, did they even know this at that meeting, or, you know, stated, like you say, later, after the meeting?
She was here at the meeting.
Yeah, but I mean, did
April
it come after our meeting and they thought it was a good deal? That's all, I have no idea.
I'm not denying that there are practices and things that we probably could do to slow water down and.
Was this, Joel, or you guys, the 1.5 million, wasn't there some $1.5 million laying somewhere
Yeah, about it.
to work on
Oh, right.
stuff for projects?
See, all of these little areas here surrounded by the gold,
Oh, yeah.
those are called Huck 8s. And out of that whole Huck 8 business, one is gonna get to be chosen to do $1.5 million worth of improvements. And it's gonna be competitive. We got a couple of the Huck 8s that they wanna take a look at. So in any event, yeah, there's gonna be,
Is it acquiring ground and?
it can be.
Release ponds and stuff like
It
that?
can be,
Yeah.
or digging the pond, maybe not acquiring the ground. The
Yeah.
farmer might continue to own it, but it'll make an improvement for him that he wants, and it might be some dikes, it might be, I mean, there's a number of things that they can all do within that, that's my understanding. So it's not limited, I mean, you're only limited to your creativity.
Well, anyway. Letter, yeah, we just discussed that, right? No action.
Okay.
Unless you want action.
No, that's fine. Like I say, it's gonna go to the legislature, I mean, that's what they're asking to try to, and I don't see it.
I just wondered about that.
Well,
Trying to learn a little more. Rick Goldstein is a representative
Yeah.
to the watershed. So he's been going to all the meetings. I just want to get that letter out there.
well, always gotta remember, there's a get out quick clause in that thing.
I'll use it right now.
No, we still can.
Oh my God.
Item 8, approve placing $9,826.07 in the land acquisition and capital improvement fund for the Wapsie Trail long-term maintenance.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Then moved in second, further discussion.
Require that be used for chairs. It says capital improvement fund.
Well,
No, that's for the Wapsie.
Well, we'll be at a display board. Showing the Wapsie.
yeah.
Or put on the back of the chair, property of Wapsie Trail.
There you go.
For borrowing. I'm just kidding.
Morale.
Aye.
Oakley.
Aye.
Walk, aye, motion carried. Items of note, meetings attended.
I got a meeting tonight.
Is that at land?
Yeah, and your box of paints there, I got it.
Got your good stuff.
3 gallons.
Okay. I had a,
Red, white, and blue. I don't know what it is.
any colors, any bright colors, yellow, orange. Volkswagen doesn't care.
Oh,
Red,
okay, well, they
greens.
had it in a box, I didn't look at the colors.
I had a North Central Regional Emergency Response. What's that?
butterflies.
Sunflowers, or
Painting butterflies?
Yeah.
Oh, he's got.
Volkswagen.
Oh, I understand where it's going down. Little slow, I think. Some weeks have 2 Mondays in. It's one of those Wells Fargo things. Comes in on slow stages.
Yeah.
I had a North Central Regional Emergency Planning District Committee meeting and Response Commission meeting last, what was that, Thursday or Wednesday? Yeah.
Wednesday.
Last one. Sometimes it's on Thursdays. Anyway, the emergency management gal from Charles City had resigned, Bridget Moe. She had resigned her position as the chair, and Mark Hunifield has taken over as chair, and we elected Amy Buffington who's going to take over as vice president. On the hazmat team report, there were no responses to report, but they did hold some training classes. Had a discussion on having more training and things. They actually had to send $9,000 back to the state that they did use, which isn't all bad, but they stopped funding it. They won't. They have what they call a local emergency planning commission workshop at NIAC, North Iowa Area Community College, on commodity flow. It was called a commodity flow workshop. They discuss all the commodities that are flowing in or through or out of the county, or actually all of the counties in this area. We have ethanol going in, grain shipments coming in, fertilizer, anhydrous, this, that, and the other. So there will be a training on ethanol. It's called TransCare training, and it will be held at North Springs on May 22nd, 23rd. It will be training on ethanol in rail cars and the response to it, and they're actually going to have a real locomotive and cars there for that. So. And yesterday morning, I had to go to Charles City for Floyd Mitchell Chickasaw Early Childhood Iowa. There was a accreditation meeting with the individuals that do that type of thing for the Learning Connection Program Coordinator. Basically a question and answer of how her program was being accepted and utilized, and the results thereof. So that was what I had.
Last Tuesday night, County Conservation, and one of the things again was that they were going to try to obtain Pioneer Park from the state ownership to county ownership, since the county's been maintaining it, putting the, and I was going to go down with Adam on Thursday. Late Wednesday afternoon, we got emails explaining don't show up. We pulled it off of the agenda. The reason being is 2 of the commissioners that set the whole thing up, that this is how the county had to maintain their part of the agreement. They had to have this type of lights, just, I mean, all kinds of restrictions, and that they were going off the board. And so the email said, wait a month, we're going to recommend that you get the park with no strings attached. With these 2 commissioners, there would be strings attached. We don't want to go through it. We want to give it to you. So wait a month and we'll make that recommendation that we just give you the park. So Adam and I didn't have to go down on Thursday. So that was kind of a good deal. And on Wednesday, we had T21. The major topic of discussion is we have about basically $130,000 a year that goes into normally some one or more trail projects. And they were wondering if they shouldn't be pulling that money and putting it back into just using it for roads in the whole area. And no decision was made. We're gonna probably make one at the July meeting. My personal thing would be, I'd rather see the money stay in the trails, that little bit of money, again, that would come between the 7 counties. 130,000 divided by 7 doesn't give us hardly anything for roads, but 130,000 a year does help considerably on somebody for a trail project, and there's some good ones out there. And so,
Nothing else, I'll maintain them,
yeah.
you know.
That's gonna be the next thing, you know.
So,
They'll age on them, they're gonna need fixing.
but the trails are being utilized, and utilized extensively. So, I mean, to me, that's a good deal again. So that was my 2 meetings. Transfer of funds,
3 of them.
but,
Rural basic secondary roads, 400,000. Local option to general supplemental, 100,000. And general basic to land acquisition, 30,000. And our annual, this time of year, wants to do this, so.
so noted. Manure management plan update.
Let's see, we got Relo 2, and that one is section 17 of Osage Township. We have the Gen Race site, section 31 of Union, the Osage River City Ag, section 34 of Cedar East. We have Sunner, owned by Jim Koenigs. This is an original one, okay. That's section 34, it's a new site. Section 34 of Mitchell. And they have section 32, well, this one's for Howard County, but it's part of called the Carpenter North Finisher, owned by Jim Koenigs.
So noted. Item D, we've already discussed floodplains. Item E, insurance on the courthouse.
Got an email from Judy the other day and said that we needed to determine the amount of coverage we want to leave on that. She recommended that we leave enough as to whether if there was a natural disaster or something, you know, a tornado, whatever you want to call it, would blow down, that you would be able to clean the site. Recommended $250,000.
Does that bring it up?
Yeah.
To clean it up?
My check.
That'll cover the candlelight visual.
Probably not, but anyway, that was the number. Then also, she wanted to know what we had in contents at the clerk of the court, and so I emailed Sharon, and she's gonna get us a list of that, and then we're going to have that, and then we can provide them the last day that we were in the courthouse, and then we would get a refund on the insurance from that date going forward. So, as soon as we have consensus of the board, if that's $250,000, that's what we'll do. I'll email her and say that's fine.
Okay. I think they
Make
had,
that consensus of the board.
I think that's what they basically had in that budget, didn't they, for?
Well, that was, yeah, right. That's kind of where I threw that out at her. I said, we need soft costs, and now she said probably a good thing to go with it. So.
And I did contact,
One other thing on that, going forward now, there's no insurance on glass breakage, water damage, vandalism.
Is there someplace where I can go
anything
get
like
a
that.
drink?
So, I don't know if
in the courthouse.
in the old courthouse, I don't know if we want to put plywood in the window. It's water.
Yeah.
We got the sheriff's
Tickle in my throat.
Yeah.
Keep an eye on that.
Just a block away.
But that was it. That came late.
You gotta go slow.
You want me to get you glass? Well, I'll get you some.
Okay.
The other only thing I had was Jeff Heil will be coming May 7th, tentatively. And we had a little discussion on, financing for going forward in that, and the thing that's confusing to me is he suggested that that we set a date for a vote on the bond issue. I always was told that we can't set the,
Mark said, that's not up to us.
yeah, that's what Mark said, and Jeff says we can, but I'm,
3 minutes.
yeah. So, I mean, in any event, as I say, it went back and forth a little bit with them on that, but in any event, by that time, we should have a fairly decent idea of what we think the thing is gonna cost, how we come up with the funding, and.
Thank you, you're welcome.
So other than that, is there anything else for the good of the cause?
Just put the appointment to the Board of Health next month.
Okay. Got one? There we go, okay.
David Beckham resigned. He'd been on there for several years. So I got a replacement. So I'd like to maybe bring him in next week and appoint him again.
Yeah, good, Bob.
And did I email you, Mark? Well, did I email you about Jeff Heil on the 7th?
Yes.
Okay.
May 7th.
Yeah. Anything else then for the good of the cause?
Not that anything.
If not, the cause will stand adjourned.